There seems to be some sort of disconnect, though, here with the coaches and you, and I'm not sure exactly why.
I hate to sound like I am beating on a dead horse here because I made a lot of videos on the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they keep on coming out with worse and worse information, and it's empirical data that has been brought straight to us. If it doesn't have to do with sabotaging Trevor Lawrence, it could have to do with the fact that they are putting one of their best offensive players in the doghouse for no reason whatsoever. And the worst part is, not even the coaching staff understands why they are doing it. No, I'm not kidding. This is actually what's going on. By the way, if you want to win $500, make sure you follow me on Instagram at @TheFlightMike. And now that we got all that out of the way, break! I don't want to hear it. There's no way, shape, or form you picked the Detroit Lions to beat the Minnesota Vikings last week. And if you did, let me know in the comment section down below as we're about to make this week's picks. Of course, we're doing this through my absolute favorite platform to do weekly picks, and that's Bounty Sports, mainly because you can enroll in one of these contests for free when you use my promo code Mikerophone on their website. They give you a $5 deposit every time you use my promo code Mikerophone on their website, so you could pretty much enter this contest for free and enter for a chance to win $1,440 in total prizes. So with that being said, let's watch myself actually get each and every one of these picks right this week. We got the Carolina Panthers versus the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, there's no way Carolina messes this up this week. We got the New Orleans Saints versus the New York Jets. We gotta pick some upsets here, man. And I know Zach Wilson has been hot and cold and hasn't really looked the best, but the Saints didn't really look so hot with Taysom Hill under center. We're gonna go with the Jets. We got the Jags versus the Titans. The Titans are extremely thin. This could be our third upset in a row. There's a lot of drama going on in Jacksonville, but I'm going to go with Duval this week. We got the Washington football team and the Cowboys. I'm going with my Cowboys. Seahawks versus Texans. The Seahawks finally won a game last week, and they really needed it, but they're not really in playoff contention anymore, but the Texans look horrible, man. So we're going to go with the Seahawks. We got the Ravens versus the Cleveland Browns. Let's go with the Baltimore Ravens. We got the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City looks like the real deal again, man. We're gonna go with the Chiefs. We got the LA Chargers versus the New York Giants. Oh, that's an easy one, man. We gotta go with the Chargers. The Lions, I don't think the Lions are gonna win 2 in a row, and if they do, it'll blow my freaking mind and it'll destroy everything I have going for myself. We're going with the Denver Broncos this week. We got the 49ers versus the Bengals. Give me the Bengals. Then we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Buffalo Bills, and probably my favorite game of this week. I'm gonna go Bills over here, man. They definitely need vengeance after what happened to them on Monday Night Football. Finally, we got the Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. That's an easy one. Let's go with the Packers. They're getting their all-pro linemen back. They're getting a bunch of great players on defense back. So these are my picks for this week. Let me know what your picks are. And remember, if you use my promo code Mikerophone on Bounty Sports, you'll get a free $5 deposit into your account, so you could enter this contest for free and win some money. And thank you, Bounty Sports, for sponsoring this video. Mike check 1212. What's going on, everybody? If you remember going back to this past offseason, there's one thing I said that could completely sabotage the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this is after they hired Urban Meyer. And this had to do more with the fact that if they picked the wrong general manager to try to help this team get to where they have to go, give them all the assets that this team had as a result of the Jalen Ramsey trade and additional moves that they made in their past, and the fact that they were the worst team in the NFL at the time, well, that's one way that you could squander this remarkable opportunity to rebuild Jacksonville into a powerhouse. And unfortunately, the man that they hired for the job initially was Trent Baalke, and if you're a San Francisco 49ers fan, then you might have felt a little uncomfortable with the Trent Baalke decision. Just by simply looking at Trent Baalke's decisions in the NFL draft, of course there are some hits, but you have players like Aldon Smith that didn't last very long, Tank Carradine, which didn't really play at all, Eric Reed, LaMichael James, AJ Jenkins, who didn't even play a single down and was a first-round draft pick. And as you go down the list, you can see there are some players that were able to make it and were very successful, like DeForest Buckner, but for the most part, he was extremely unsuccessful when it came to the NFL draft for the San Francisco 49ers. The very worst part is, at the very end of his tenure, him and Jim Harbaugh had a huge falling out. Of course, this could have also been as a result of Jim Harbaugh realizing that the San Francisco 49ers were about to enter a rebuild and he had to jump ship as quickly as possible if he wanted to get a huge payday, which is why Jim Harbaugh inevitably went to Michigan and Trent Baalke would inevitably get fired after the 2017 NFL season. So hiring Trent Baalke never made a lot of sense to me, but I kind of put it aside until the NFL draft came around. That's when I first saw a sign of just absolute incompetence from Trent Baalke. Now look, I'm not about to roast a man that hasn't even played a single down in the NFL, because for all you know, Travis Etienne could come in and be the next great running back in the NFL. But whenever you look at the plethora of issues that the Jacksonville Jaguars had, it never really made a lot of sense to spend a first round pick on Travis Etienne, especially when you had James Robinson, which I could understand thinking that last year he had a fluke season, I suppose, but even going into this season, James Robinson is having an even better year, despite his team being absolutely terrible. In his rookie season, he rushed for over 1,000 yards, had 7 touchdowns, and had a 4.5 yards per carry average. He had 1,400 yards from scrimmage in total. And instead of saying, okay, it looks like one of the more luxury positions on our team seems to be filled, it seems like the Jacksonville Jaguars said, no, we're going to go ahead and draft a running back with our additional first round pick, and they ended up selecting Travis Etienne out of Clemson. Now, ultimately, Travis Etienne would get injured before the season and was out for the entire season, and of course, I guess you could say this was a pick more to make Trevor Lawrence feel a little bit more comfortable, but the Jacksonville Jaguars had so many needs at that position that I felt like they needed to do whatever it took in order to make Trevor Lawrence's life a little easier under center, especially in his first year. Trading up to select Christian Darrisaw would have made sense. I would have even been okay with them drafting Tevin Jenkins, even though he had an injury issue as well. Hell, if they took Elijah Moore at this pick, I would have said that it was a good pick as well. But ultimately, they selected a player at a position which is a luxury position, which they already had a very talented player at that position. But it gets way worse, because despite James Robinson having a 4.9 yards per carry average, being well on his way for a 1,000 yard rushing season, for some reason the Jacksonville Jaguars have benched him and they don't want to play him at all whatsoever. And the worst part is, it doesn't seem like Urban Meyer or any member of the Jacksonville Jaguars understands what's going on in this instance. So get a load of this. Michael DeRocco is a Jacksonville Jaguars beat reporter, and this past week he noticed that against the LA Rams, James Robinson only had 8 rushes for 24 yards and didn't play very much. Apparently they said that James Robinson was dealing with an injury, so Michael DeRocco said during that Sunday, here's an interesting James Robinson question. If the Jacksonville Jaguars consider not playing him and say he's not 100%, why did he get 3 of his 8 carries in the final 2 minutes with the Jacksonville Jaguars trailing 37-7? That's something to ask Urban Meyer on Monday. Michael DeRocco would actually ask Urban Meyer this question, and the response is absolutely horrific. I mean, there's no bigger sign of an incompetent organization than this answer right here. He follows up the next day saying, I asked Urban Meyer about that today, and his response was, that's a good question. Meyer said there's a running back rotation, and running back coach Bernie Parmalee must have wanted to get Robinson a few more carries at that point. When I said that didn't seem wise, Urban Meyer said I'd agree. So this goes even further into dysfunction in the Jacksonville Jaguars organization, because even coming into the season, if you remember, there was a preseason report in September saying that Urban Meyer's unhinged coaching style is causing internal trouble for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This comes from a very reputable source, Jason La Canfora, that had this to say all the way back in the beginning of September, saying that there is a disconnect at times between the members of the staff with extensive pro experience and those who lack it, and morale has suffered as the outbursts have continued. His fiery remarks to players and coaches after games have already struck many as bizarre. Urban Meyer has threatened the job security of members of his staff following preseason losses, going on to belittle coaches. Meyer has had trouble figuring out the timing with the installation and other NFL scheduling items as well, causing delays and further causing difficulties for the coaching staff. Also irking members of Jacksonville is Meyer's seemingly control freak attitude, with Meyer taking over practice drills when they're not run to his exact specifications and expectations. There are also questions surrounding Meyer's grasp on NFL personnel with the team, according to La Canfora. He has everyone looking over their shoulders already. He becomes unhinged way too easily, and he doesn't know how to handle losing even in the preseason. He loses it and wants to take over the drills himself, and it's not good. So it seems like this is very consistent, because Urban Meyer's literally throwing one of his coaches under the bus in a moment where it seems like there's a huge miscommunication going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars and himself. But it gets even worse than this, because the media went ahead and asked James Robinson what's going on with this situation during an Action Sports Jacksonville segment.
There seems to be some sort of disconnect, though, here with the coaches and you, and I'm not sure exactly why. For example, you're in the game game at the end of the game yesterday. But if you're beat up, that makes no sense for you to be in the game at the end of the game. The outcome has already been decided. Why are you in the game at the end of the game? And I know as a player, you just go in when you're told to go in. And Urban Meyer said today, that probably wasn't a good idea looking back. I don't understand where there seems to be some sort of disconnect with you and the coaches. Do you feel that way, I guess?
At that point, towards the end of the game, I wasn't even looking at the clock.
Yeah.
I mean, those last 3 or 2 runs that I had.
Yeah.
I think on the last run, I got up and started walking back to the huddle because I wasn't sure how much time was on the clock, and I looked at the clock and it was like 0-0, and at the end of the game I was like, oh, I wasn't really paying attention that much. So, I knew the game was over by that point, but, probably should have been just resting.
It's kind of crazy because this isn't the only talented Jacksonville Jaguars player that Urban Meyer is alienating. Do you remember when he first got hired and he came in and criticized DJ Chark, calling him a big guy that played little, saying, I just didn't like his size or his strength. I just thought that was way below average, way below of what we expect from our receivers, and he was told that. He's a big guy that played little last year, and that can't happen. Guys like Mike Thomas and Louis Murphy are those big, strong, fast receivers, and he's got to play big and strong. Then you had when he made Trevor Lawrence compete with Gardner Minshew for the starting position for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he ended up trading Gardner Minshew. It's just really unfortunate because it's almost as if you gave the keys to a Lamborghini to a man that has no idea how to drive. Yeah, maybe Urban Meyer would be the right coach for a different NFL team, but not a rebuilding Jacksonville Jaguars team that's just drafted one of the most transcendent talents in NFL history. The Jaguars clearly don't know what they're doing, and the worst part is, I don't think any of this is Trevor Lawrence's fault at all whatsoever. If you look at the way he plays the game, there are times where he shows flashes of brilliance, and then there's times where he just looks absolutely terrifying. You can completely ruin him as a prospect if you don't get him the right help soon. At the time I'm making this video, Trevor Lawrence has a 58% completion percentage, has only won 2 games, has thrown for 2,500 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. And I don't think that's all his fault. I think a lot of it is just the situation he's being placed in. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about the Jacksonville Jaguars lately? What would you do to fix them? Do you think Urban Meyer deserves another chance, or do you think he should be fired at the end of the season? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.